The city sleeps, but some of us remain awake, guardians of the quiet hours. The night shift, a world unto itself, where the ordinary takes on a strange new hue, and the shadows dance with unseen possibilities. Welcome, restless soul, to Nightmare True Horror. Tonight, we clock in for 7 true tales from those who toil under the cloak of darkness, where every creak, every unexpected visitor, can herald a descent into terror. What unsettling encounters have you faced when the world outside was dreaming? Share your own late-night dread, your stories from the graveyard shift, in the comments below. Let the quiet hum of the after hours bear witness to your fears. And if you find a grim camaraderie in these tales from the nocturnal frontier, ensure you are subscribed. For Nightmare True Horror is always on duty, unearthing the horrors that thrive when the sun goes down. Pour yourself a cup of coffee. The night is long, and the most chilling calls often come when you least expect them. Let the shift begin. The flicker of the neon sign outside bathed the parking lot in a sickly green glow. 24-hour fuel. The U had burned out last week, leaving a 24-hour fill. Appropriate, considering the man in aisle 3. He'd been there 57 minutes, not browsing, not buying, just loitering. Late-night weirdos were part of the job, but this one was different. His eyes never left me, even as he pretended to study a Slim Jim. The security feed showed his hands trembling, but his smile stayed frozen, too wide, too white. Too white. The police scanner crackled on my phone. All units, armed robbery at Quickmart. Suspect, white male, 30s, navy hoodie. His hoodie was navy. Need help finding something. My voice echoed too loud. He turned slowly. The scar on his neck pulsed when he spoke. Just deciding. His accent was flat, Midwestern, but his pupils were pinpricks. Meth. Paranoia. The knife display between us felt suddenly flimsy. At 2:17 a.m., he placed a pack of gum on the counter. Trident Original. His nails were crusted with dirt. Nice night, he said, staring at my name tag. Jess. The register drawer jammed. His breath hitched when I cursed. Here, he slid a folded bill across. A 20. The words "help me" were scrawled in red ink. The scanner erupted. Suspect shot clerk. Proceed with caution. I dropped the money. Keep the gum. He didn't move. The security camera light blinked. Off. The bathroom lock saved me. He pounded the door, laughing. Jess, open up. I just want to talk. The window was nailed shut. My phone had no bars. The pounding stopped. Fine. A muffled thud. Liquid sloshed under the door. Gasoline. The fire alarm drowned his laughter. I smashed the mirror, slashing my arm on the glass. The exit door was chained. He waited by the pumps, lighter flicking. Showed Vacant the 20, Jess. A semi-truck roared into the lot. I screamed. They found him 2 miles away, hiding in a drainage ditch. The cops called me lucky. But tonight, closing up, the scanner buzzed again. Armed robbery, suspect in custody. Yet the security feed shows a man in a navy hoodie, smiling at the camera, scar pulsing. He mouths, "Shift's not over. Final note." The last shift preys on the vulnerability of isolation and the masks worn by those who thrive in the dark. The real horror isn't the stranger in the night. It's the realization that survival is just the first shift. Clock in. Stay vigilant. Breathe. I should have called in sick. Should have listened to my gut when it twisted into knots at 11 p.m., 3 hours into what was supposed to be a routine night shift. But Danny's Express doesn't pay sick days, and rent was due tomorrow. Zoen dispatch crackled over the radio with one last delivery. A special pickup requiring immediate transport. I took it. 1247 Industrial Boulevard. The dispatcher's voice buzzed through static. Construction company. Cash on delivery. Packages waiting. Industrial Boulevard after midnight was a graveyard of dormant machinery and empty warehouses. I'd driven this route hundreds of times in my 2 years with Danny's, but never this late. My headlights carved through the darkness, illuminating nothing but cracked asphalt and chain-link fences topped with razor wire. The GPS led me to a construction site I'd never noticed during daylight runs. Holbrook Development, according to the weathered sign. The gate hung open, creaking softly in the night breeze. No security booth, no night watchman, I parked the van and checked my clipboard. The delivery order was handwritten, barely legible. Urgent medical supplies. Handle with extreme care. The customer's signature was just an illegible scrawl. Something was wrong. A figure emerged from the shadows beside a half-built office complex. Tall, wearing dark coveralls, face hidden under a baseball cap. He raised one hand, a greeting or a warning, I couldn't tell. I rolled down the window. "You the one expecting a delivery?" He nodded but didn't speak. Up close, I could see he was older than his stride suggested. Maybe 60, with deep lines around his eyes and hands that trembled slightly as he approached. "Where's the package?" he asked, voice like gravel. "Need to get it from dispatch first. They'll call when it's ready for pickup." His expression shifted. "It's already loaded. Check the back." My stomach clenched. I always loaded my own truck, always verified each package. But when I walked to the rear of the van, there it was. A large, unmarked box secured with heavy-duty tape. "When did this get here?" I asked. But the man was already opening the van's back doors. The package was heavier than it looked, requiring both of us to maneuver it onto a dolly he'd brought. As we lifted, something shifted inside. A wet, sliding sound that made my skin crawl. "Medical equipment's heavy," he said, noting my expression. "Imaging machines, pumps." But medical equipment didn't squish when you moved it. We wheeled it toward a trailer that served as the site office. The man unlocked multiple deadbolts. More security than any construction trailer needed. More security than any construction trailer needed. Inside, battery-powered lanterns cast eerie shadows on the walls. "That'll be $400, he said, pulling a roll of bills from his pocket. $400 cash for a single delivery. I'd never seen a payout that large for one run. "Sign here." I held out the clipboard, hands shaking slightly. He signed without looking at the paper, then pressed the money into my palm. "You were never here tonight." "What? Forget this address. Forget you saw me. Forget you made this delivery." The word sent ice down my spine. "Look, I just deliver packages. I don't ask questions." "Good." He counted out another 100. "Because some questions get people hurt." I backed toward the van. Money clutched in my sweaty palm. I should get going. "Wait." He opened the package with a utility knife, just enough to peer inside. Whatever he saw satisfied him, or horrified him. His face went pale. "This never happened," he whispered. I wanted to run, but my feet felt rooted to the spot. Through the small opening he'd made in the box, I caught a glimpse of something red, something that looked disturbingly like, "Go." His voice cut through my thoughts. "Now." I ran to the van, hands shaking as I fumbled with the keys. In the rearview mirror, I watched him drag the box into the trailer. The lights went out, plunging the site back into darkness. Halfway back to the depot, my radio crackled. "Unit 7. What's your status on that Industrial Boulevard delivery?" "Completed," I managed. "What delivery?" The dispatcher sounded confused. "I don't show any runs scheduled for Industrial Boulevard tonight." My blood turned to ice. "You sent me to 1247 Industrial Boulevard. Construction site. Special pickup. Negative, Unit 7. You've been off radio for 20 minutes. Last delivery was the pharmacy on 5th Street. I pulled over, hands trembling as I checked my clipboard. The delivery order was gone. The page was blank. But I still had the $500. 5 crisp hundreds. I drove straight home, calling in sick for the rest of the week. But sleep wouldn't come. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that red glimpse through the package opening, heard that wet, sliding sound. On Thursday, the local news ran a story that made my stomach drop. Missing doctor found dead. Dr. Sarah Chen, a forensic pathologist, had been missing for 6 days. Her body was discovered in a shallow grave at a construction site on Industrial Boulevard. I recognized the location from the news footage. Holbrook Development, the same site where I'd made my mysterious delivery. The next day I called the police. Detective Martinez listened to my story with growing interest. "Can you describe the man you met?" I gave him what details I could remember. The coveralls, the cap, the trembling hands, the multiple deadbolts on the trailer. "We'll need you to come down and look at some photos," he said. At the station, I identified him immediately from a mugshot. William Holbrook, 62, owner of Holbrook Development. He had a history of tax evasion and suspected ties to organized crime. "What was in the package?" Martinez asked. I told him about the weight, the shifting contents, that glimpse of red. His expression darkened. Mr. Holbrook was Dr. Chen's patient. According to her appointment records, she was treating him for Parkinson's disease. Explains the trembling hands you mentioned. But why kill her? Martinez leaned back in his chair. Dr. Chen was more than a doctor. She was a forensic pathologist who'd been consulting on several cases involving construction site accidents, workers who died under suspicious circumstances. She was building a case against Holbrook for safety violations that weren't accidents. They were murders. The pieces fell into place. He killed her to stop the investigation. And you helped him move the evidence. That night, I couldn't eat. Couldn't sleep. I'd been an unwitting accomplice to murder. The money sat on my kitchen table like an accusation. My phone rang at 2 a.m. You should have listened. The familiar gravelly voice. Holbrook, how did you get this number? I know where you live, Mr. Stevens. 431 Maple Street, apartment 2B. I know you work for Danny's Express. I know you told the police about our transaction. I had to. You had one job. Forget. But you couldn't do that, could you? I hung up and immediately called 911. Police arrived within minutes, but Holbrook was gone. Detective Martinez called the next morning. We found the trailer, cleaned out, but our forensics team found traces of blood. Dr. Chen's blood. What about Holbrook? Gone. Disappeared. His construction company's been shut down, assets frozen. But he's in the wind. 3 days later, I found a package on my doorstep. No return address. Inside was a single photograph. Dr. Chen, very much alive, in what looked like a basement or warehouse. The timestamp showed it was taken after the date she was supposedly found dead. On the back handwriting I recognized. She's still alive, for now. Keep your mouth shut, or join her. I called Martinez immediately. The body they found. It wasn't Dr. Chen. What are you talking about? I told him about the photograph. There was silence on the line. That's impossible. We have positive ED, dental records. Then who did I help him bury? Another long pause. I'm sending a unit to pick you up. Don't go anywhere. But I already knew I couldn't trust anyone. Not the police. Not my dispatcher, who claimed to have no record of that night's delivery. Someone had erased all evidence of what really happened. That evening I made a decision. I packed a bag and emptied my bank account. The $500 from Holbrook went to a homeless shelter. Blood money I couldn't keep. As I loaded my car, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Smart choice. But you can't run forever. I've been driving for 3 days now, staying in cash-only motels, paying for everything with bills. But I know he's watching. No, he's waiting. Because here's what really haunts me. I never saw Dr. Chen's face in that photograph clearly, and the more I think about it, the more I realize something that makes my blood run cold. The wet, sliding sound from the package wasn't from a body. It was from something alive. Dr. Chen wasn't dead when I delivered her. Holbrook had sedated her, packaged her like cargo, and I'd helped him transport a living, breathing woman to whatever hell he had planned. I'm writing this in a diner outside Bakersfield, hands shaking as I type on my phone. The news just broke on the TV above the counter. Construction site massacre. 7 bodies found buried at industrial development project. Holbrook's face fills the screen. They're calling him the bulldozer killer. 7 victims over 5 years, all buried at his construction sites. All people who'd gotten too close to his operation. But Dr. Chen's name isn't among them. A man in coveralls just sat down at the counter. Baseball cap pulled low, hence that tremble slightly as he orders coffee. He hasn't looked at me yet, but I know he's here for me. I'm going to post this, then make a run for the back exit. Maybe I'll make it to the parking lot, maybe not. If you're reading this and my disappearance makes the news, remember one thing. There are packages being delivered every night that should never be delivered. Drivers who take jobs they shouldn't take. And sometimes, when you peek inside a box meant for someone else, you become the package. The man at the counter is standing up now, leaving money on the counter, walking toward my booth. I should have called in sick that night. I started working late at the office last October. Longer hours, tighter deadlines, a promotion that felt more like a punishment. The building was downtown, a sterile 20-story cube of glass and steel with polished floors and automatic lights that buzzed softly overhead when you walked beneath them. During the day, it bustled with energy. At night, it felt like a tomb. I usually left by 9 p.m., but that Monday, I stayed past 11. It was around 10:47 when I first saw him. He was standing by the vending machines near the elevators. Tall, lean, maybe mid-40s, wearing the standard navy blue security uniform. Something about him felt off. He looked clean-cut but stiff, like someone playing a role. No name tag, no radio, no badge. "Evening," he said as I passed. His voice was flat, polite, but hollow. I nodded back, then kept walking. By 11:30, I'd finished up and was heading out. As I waited for the elevator, I glanced toward the hallway. The guard was there again, this time standing outside the CEO's office, staring at the keypad lock like he was trying to memorize the pattern. When the elevator dinged behind me, he flinched and turned quickly, flashing a half-smile like I'd caught him doing something embarrassing. He walked past me and down the stairwell without a word. I thought maybe I was overreacting. New guy, probably confused. Maybe he was trying to learn the floor plan. Still, something stuck with me on the drive home. The way he avoided eye contact. The way his shoes didn't squeak on the marble floors like everyone else. The way he seemed rehearsed. The next night, he was already inside the lobby when I arrived at 8:30. I tried to be casual. "You new here?" I asked. He didn't look up from the monitor. "Started this week? Cool. What's your name?" He paused just a second too long. "Eric." No last name, no badge. Just Eric. I emailed HR the next morning and asked about the new guard. A reply came back 2 hours later. "Hi Jeremy, thanks for reaching out. Our current contracted guard is Jeff Corman. Nights, weekends. Waits, weekends. No other guards have been assigned by the vendor. Let me know if this is about a specific incident." That night, I printed the email and took it with me. When I arrived, Eric was again seated behind the desk in the lobby. He stood as I approached, that same eerie calm. "Hey, I got a weird email today." I started. "Apparently Jeff's supposed to be on duty. Not you." He looked at me without blinking. "They must have the schedule wrong. Funny, how's I eat? There's no one else contracted." He smiled slightly. "Then I guess I'm not here." It was said so simply, like a joke, but it didn't land. It sank, cold and heavy. I went straight up to my floor, didn't leave my desk until after midnight, and I finally stepped out into the hallway. The overhead lights had all gone off, and the silence was thick. The only illumination came from the red exit signs glowing dimly at each end of the corridor. I took the stairs. I didn't want to see Eric again, but I did. As I reached the third-floor landing, I heard footsteps echoing below. I pressed back against the wall and waited. A moment later, he emerged from the stairwell below, carrying a heavy black duffel bag over his shoulder. He didn't see me. He didn't even look up, just moved silently down the hall toward the records room. The bag looked heavy. His hands gripped the handles tight. I stayed frozen in place until I heard the soft beep-beep of the keypad as he entered the records room. The next morning, I came in early and walked past that door. It was closed. No sign of forced entry. But something had changed. I couldn't name what exactly. The hallway smelled faintly of bleach, like someone had tried to erase something. That afternoon, I went to the front desk and asked to check the security logs. The woman behind the counter, Paula, frowned and said the night logs were temporarily unavailable due to technical issues. "Since when?" I asked. "Since Tuesday," she said. That was the day after I first saw him. That night, I waited in my car until just after 10 p.m. before slipping quietly into the building. The lobby was empty. No sign of Eric. I made it to the second-floor security office, the one with the monitor wall that displays the building's live camera feeds. The system was active. I scanned the halls one by one. Nothing. Then I clicked the feed for the CEO's office. The camera was off. I checked the records room. Same. I backed out, nervous, and reached for the main hallway camera, one of the only feeds still active. And then I saw him, standing perfectly still, staring directly into the camera, as though he knew I was watching. He raised one hand and waved. The feed cut to black. I slammed the monitor off and left that room as fast as I could. I didn't go back the next night or the night after. I worked remotely, claiming illness. On Friday, the real night guard, Jeff, called me. HR had told him I'd made an inquiry. He said, "Man, listen, I didn't want to freak anyone out, but someone's been using my name on a falsified badge. I found out from another building in the chain. They thought it was me covering extra shifts, but I was never there. Who was it? I asked. Guy showed up in uniform with my badge number. Told, and I got reassigned. No one double-checked. They just let him in. I reported everything. Again, this time, it triggered a full investigation. The company audited every keycard entry. Someone had been accessing floors they shouldn't, including the CEO's office, the legal suite, and the secure server room. But here's the part that still haunts me. The server room's door had been unlocked, but not forced. The access logs were wiped. Entire case files and confidential records had vanished. Whoever Everett was, he didn't just pretend to be a guard. He knew exactly what he was looking for. We never saw him again. The police reviewed security footage, but nearly all of it from those nights had been corrupted. What little remained showed a man in a uniform walking calmly through the halls. His face always just turned away from the camera. They never identified him, not officially. But the week after, I found a note in my car. No envelope. Just a folded piece of paper on the dashboard. On it was one sentence, handwritten, "Guards keep secrets, and I collect them." I moved out of state 2 months later. To this day, I lock my doors before dark. I tape over every camera on every screen I own, and I never, ever stay in the office after hours. Because somewhere out there, someone is still watching, and they still have the keys. I gripped my clipboard. The pens clicked loud in the 2 a.m. stillness. The ward's air was heavy, smelling of antiseptic and something sour, like unwashed skin. John's chart said he was 40, admitted after a breakdown. No family, no history beyond a vague police report. Sedatives should have kept him down till morning, but every round, his bed was empty, sheets tangled. I'd find him in the hall, or by the locked rec room, motionless, his gaunt face half lit, eyes unblinking. My skin prickled each time, but he never spoke, just watched. I started my rounds, flashlight beam cutting through the dim corridor. Room 12's door was ajar, though I closed it an hour ago. I peered in, bed empty, pillow dented, a faint scrapey echoing from the hole's end. My heart thudded. I crept forward, the scrapey growing sharper, like nails on metal. In the corner, by the fire exit, John stood, his hospital gown hanging loose, fingers tracing the wall. He turned, eyes locking on mine, and whispered, "You're next, Tim. My name." I hadn't told him that. I backed away, breath shallow, and radioed my coworker, Ellen, a nurse with a no-nonsense streak. "John's out again," I hissed. She sighed through the static. "Lock him in. He's harmless, just creepy." I wasn't so sure. I guided John back, his steps silent, his gaze never leaving me. The door's lock clicked, but as I walked away, a soft quitum came from inside, like a fist on wood. I checked the other rooms, my flashlight trembling, every shadow a threat. At 3 a.m., the power flickered, light stuttering. The ward plunged into dark, the emergency exit sign a sickly red glow. A "oi-goi" creaky sounded from room 12. The door now opened, though I'd locked it. I radioed Ellen. No answer, just static. My flashlight caught a smear on the floor. Dark, wet, leading to the rec room. I followed, heart pounding, the scrapey returning, now behind me. I spun, beam slashing the dark. Nothing, but the air felt thick, like someone breathing close. The rec room was locked, but the smear ended at its door, the handle slick with something coppery. I called Ellen's name, voice cracking. A low hum answered, not mechanical, but human, from inside. I fumbled with my keys, the hum growing into words. Tim, Tim. My hands shook as I unlocked the door, the hinges groaning. Inside, Ellen's clipboard lay on the floor, pages torn, her pen snapped. John stood in the corner, holding a scalpel, its blade glinting. "You saw me," he said, voice low, "so you're mine." I stumbled back, the door slamming shut, locking me in. John stepped forward, his eyes feverish, the scalpel steady. My flashlight flickered, shadows dancing. I grabbed a chair, swinging it, catching his arm. The scalpel clattered, but he lunged, hands clawing my throat. I kicked free, scrambling to the door, pounding for help. The Yohome filled the room, his voice chanting my name, closer, until the eye crash and outside broke the spell. Security, alerted by the cameras. Guards tackled John, cuffing him as he laughed, a hollow, jagged sound. Ellen was found in the supply closet, bound, gagged, alive but shaken. John's chart was a lie. He was Daniel Holt, a fugitive, admitted under a false name after killing orderlies in another hospital. His motive, obsession, targeting those who saw his true self, believing they stole his identity. The scalpel was stolen from a med cart. His sedatives swapped with sugar pills by a bribed aide, long gone. Police searched his room, finding photos of me, Ellen, others, taken through windows, our routines mapped. He'd slipped restraints, roamed the ward, watching, planning. The hospital upped security, fired the aide's supervisor, but I quit, unable to face those halls. I moved to Oklahoma City, took a warehouse job. But last week, a letter arrived. No address, just a Polaroid of me in my new apartment, asleep, taken from above. On the back, in jagged scrawl, "I still see you." I keep a bat by the door, check the locks, but every eye creak, every shadow, feels like Daniel, his eyes still on me, waiting to claim what's his. The city's noise can't drown out the ward's silence, that hum in the dark. I'm free, they say, but Daniel's out there, his scalpel sharp, my name's still his chant. The graveyard shift at the Grand City Museum usually meant a quiet dance with shadows and the faint hum of the climate control. My name is Arthur Hayes, and for 3 years, I've been the guy who makes sure that Picasso's and Egyptian relics stay put while the city sleeps. It's mostly peaceful, a predictable rhythm of patrols and coffee. That peace shattered when they installed the Reflections of Justice exhibit. It was a collection of wax figures, unnervingly lifelike, each a perfect replica of a recently apprehended high-profile criminal. Think serial killers, cartel bosses, domestic terrorists. The press had a field day calling it sensationalist and trauma porn. Management insisted it was a vital sociological study. I just knew it gave me the creeps. The exhibit was housed in the newly renovated West Wing. My first few nights with it were uneventful, if unsettling. The figures were masterpieces of macabre art. Every pore, every stray hair, every chillingly blank stare rendered with horrifying precision. One figure in particular, Exhibit C, the Highwayman, depicting a recently executed serial killer named Silas Blackwood, always drew my eye. Blackwood had a signature pose in all his pre-capture photos. Left hand slightly raised, fingers curled, as if holding an invisible cigarette, a faint, almost imperceptible smirk on his lips. The wax figure replicated it perfectly. The first time I noticed something amiss, it was subtle. On my 2 a.m. patrol, Blackwood's raised hand seemed lower, just a fraction. I blinked, chalked it up to fatigue, the play of shadows. The museum's motion sensors were silent. The pressure plates under each exhibit registered no disturbance. All green on my monitor. "You're tired, Arthur," I muttered, moving on. But the next night, the change was undeniable. Blackwood's hand was now almost at his side, and the smirk, it seemed wider, more pronounced. My heart did a slow, cold flip. I checked the logs. No alarms triggered, no unauthorized access. I pulled up the security footage for that section. The camera angle wasn't perfect, but it showed nothing. No one entering or leaving the exhibit hall, no visible movement from the figure itself. It was impossible. These things weighed a ton, meticulously balanced. I started taking pictures with my phone at the beginning of my shift, and then again on each patrol, comparing them. The changes were tiny, incremental, but they were there. A slight turn of the head, fingers uncurling, then curling again. One night, the eyes, which were fixed looking straight ahead, seemed to be angled slightly towards the exhibit entrance, towards me as I approached. The alarms remained silent. The pressure plates registered no weight shift. I felt a creeping dread, the kind that starts in your gut and spreads like ice through your veins. Was I losing my mind? The silence of the museum, once a comfort, now felt oppressive. listening. Every creak of the old building, every distant rumble of late-night traffic seemed to be a prelude to something. I started avoiding the West Wing until my scheduled patrol times, my footsteps echoing too loudly in the cavernous halls. I found myself talking to the other figures, a nervous, one-sided conversation, just to break the silence, to reassure myself of my own sanity. But never to Blackwood. Blackwood just watched. One night, I found something new. Tucked into the slightly uncurled fingers of Blackwood's wax hand was a single, fresh, dark red rose. It hadn't been there on my previous patrol an hour earlier. My blood ran cold. This wasn't subtle. This was a message, a tribute. Someone had been in here. Someone who knew how to bypass the alarms, or someone who the alarms wouldn't register. My hands trembled as I photographed it, then carefully removed it with a gloved hand, dropping it into an evidence bag I kept for lost and found items. The Reflections of Justice exhibit had a small, discreet staff access door at the back of the hall, usually locked and alarmed. The logs showed it hadn't been opened in days. But the rose, the following night, I changed my routine. Instead of patrolling through the West Wing, I found a dark alcove in an adjacent gallery, one that offered an oblique view of the Highwayman exhibit. I settled in, thermos of coffee in hand, and watched. Hours passed. The silence was absolute, just as I was starting to doubt myself, to believe I truly was cracking under the strain. I saw it. A shadow detached itself from the deeper darkness near the staff access door. It moved with a fluid, almost ghostly silence. A figure, slender and dressed in dark clothing, indistinguishable in the low emergency lighting. They didn't use the door. They seemed to emerge from the wall itself, like a stagehand appearing from behind a curtain. My breath hitched. The figure glided towards Exhibit C. I watched, frozen, as the figure reached out and gently adjusted Blackwood's hand, repositioning the fingers. Then, they leaned in close to the wax face, almost as if whispering to it. It was a protracted, intimate moment. My mind struggled to comprehend. Was this a museum staffer? An artist making clandestine adjustments? But the rose, the subtle, ongoing changes. This felt like a ritual. The figure then produced something small from a pocket, another rose, and attempted to place it in the figure's hand. That's when I moved. Hey, my voice, loud in the stillness, cracked like a whip. The figure whirled, startled. In their haste, they dropped the rose and stumbled back. It was a woman. Her face, pale in the dim light, was contorted not in fear, but in a strange, almost ecstatic fervor. Her eyes were wide, shining. "You shouldn't have interfered," she hissed, her voice surprisingly strong. "He doesn't like to be disturbed when he's communing. Who are you? How did you get in here?" I demanded, stepping into the light, my hand instinctively going to the radio on my belt. "The alarms don't see me. The walls don't hold me when he calls," she said, her gaze flicking past me to the wax figure, a look of adoration on her face. "Silas needs his tributes. He needs to know he's remembered, revered." It hit me then. This wasn't about faulty mechanics or a clever prank. This was obsession, delusion. This woman, whoever she was treating this wax effigy as a shrine, as a living conduit to the dead killer. The controversy of the exhibit had attracted more than just critics. It had drawn in the truly disturbed. How she was getting in and out so silently, bypassing senses, was a terrifying mystery. Perhaps she was a former employee, or had an accomplice. The confrontation was brief, surreal. She didn't try to attack me. She just kept murmuring about Silas's will, about keeping his spirit alive. I managed to call for backup. When the other guards, and eventually, the police arrived, she was still there, calmly standing before the wax figure, as if waiting for its approval. The official story was that she was a deranged former groupie of Blackwood's, a woman who had managed to find a flaw in the museum's older infrastructure to gain access. A hidden utility passage, they said, that bypassed most of the newer alarm systems. They called it an isolated incident. The exhibit was temporarily closed, then reopened with enhanced security. But I know what I saw, the way she moved, the almost religious fervor in her eyes. The flaw in the infrastructure felt too neat an explanation for her spectral entrances and exits. The museum, my quiet sanctuary, now feels different. Every shadow seems a little deeper, every silence a little more expectant. The wax figures and reflections of justice still stand, silent and still. But I can't shake the feeling that they're listening, and I never look Exhibit C directly in its cold wax eyes anymore. Because I know that sometimes the most terrifying horrors aren't the ones that jump out and scream, but the ones that stand perfectly still, in plain sight, while the madness of the living dances silently around them. I've always been the last one to leave the office. My coworkers joke that I should install a cot in my cubicle, but ambition has its price. 4 years at Meridian Financial, and I'm still chasing that promotion that always seems just out of reach. Working late isn't a choice. It's a necessity if I want to catch the attention of the executive team. That's how I became familiar with Jorge, the night cleaner. At least that's the name on his uniform. He arrives exactly at 11:00 p.m. each night, pushing his cart of supplies with practiced efficiency. For nearly 2 years, our interactions followed the same script. I'd nod or offer a tired hello, and he'd respond with a barely perceptible acknowledgement before quickly moving to another part of the office. I never thought much about his avoidance. Night cleaning is solitary work, and not everyone craves conversation. But something changed 3 weeks ago, the night I stayed later than usual to finish the Henderson proposal. The fluorescent lights had been dimmed to the energy-saving setting that kicks in after 10:00 p.m., casting long shadows across the desks. My eyes burned from staring at spreadsheets, and the quiet hum of the building's HVAC system had become a white noise I no longer consciously registered. I'd lost track of time when a soft sound, rubber wheels on carpet, alerted me to Jorge's arrival. I glanced up, offering my usual nod, but froze mid-gesture. Jorge was staring directly at me, his expression unreadable. For several uncomfortable seconds, he didn't move. Then, without breaking eye contact, he slowly turned his cart around and disappeared down the hallway toward the executive suites, an area he typically cleaned last. A chill ran down my spine, though I couldn't explain why. Something in his gaze had seemed calculating, wrong. I dismissed the feeling, chalking it up to exhaustion. But over the following nights, I began noticing things. Jorge no longer arrived at precisely 11:00 p.m. Sometimes I'd hear his cart at 10:30. Other times not until nearly midnight. His cleaning routine, once methodical, became erratic. Most notably, he spent increasingly long periods in the executive wing, particularly in Marcus Devereaux's office, our notoriously demanding VP of Operations. Curiosity sparked within me. I began tracking Jorge's movements, noting patterns in his behavior. He always cleaned the break room first, then the main office floor, followed by the conference rooms. The executive offices had always come last, until recently. Now, he made straight for Devereaux's office, spending up to an hour inside before continuing his rounds. On nights when I stayed particularly late, I noticed another peculiarity. After completing his normal cleaning, Jorge would return to Devereaux's office around 2:00 a.m., carrying a separate caddy of supplies different from his standard cart. "You're imagining things," my colleague Tricia said when I casually mentioned the cleaner's odd behavior over lunch. "Night shift people are always a little weird. Comes with the territory." Maybe she was right. Maybe my overworked brain was creating mysteries where none existed. But last Thursday, something happened that I can't rationalize away. I was preparing to leave around 1:30 a.m. when I realized I'd left my phone charger in the small conference room. As I retrieved it, voices drifted from the executive wing. Devereaux's deep baritone, unmistakable even when hushed, and another voice responding in terse whispers. Curious, I moved quietly down the hallway. Devereaux's office door was ajar, a slice of light spilling onto the dark carpet. Through the narrow opening, I saw our VP leaning against his desk, arms crossed, speaking intently to Jorge. "This is becoming too frequent," Devereaux was saying. The arrangement was monthly. Jorge's response was too quiet to catch, but his stance was defensive, hands gesturing emphatically. "I don't care about your circumstances," Devereaux replied. "The board is starting to ask questions." Thompson noticed the discrepancy in the quarterly reports. I leaned closer, straining to hear Jorge's hushed response. My weight shifted, causing the floor to creak beneath me. Both men fell silent. I retreated quickly, heart pounding, and left the building without looking back. The next day, I scoured the company intranet for any information connecting Jorge's cleaning service to our financial reports. Nothing. Nothing. But I did discover that Meridian had switched cleaning contractors 18 months ago. Despite the previous company's lower bid, the decision had been made directly by Devereaux, overriding procurement's recommendation. That night, I deliberately stayed late again. Just after midnight, Jorge arrived on our floor. His eyes swept the office, lingering on my desk before he proceeded directly to the executive wing without cleaning any other areas. I waited 15 minutes before following, my footsteps muffled by the carpet. Devereaux's office was dark, but the door was unlocked. Inside, a desk lamp cast weak amber light across the room. Jorge wasn't there. Confused, I was about to leave when I noticed something odd on Devereaux's desk, a dark smudge on the polished surface. I moved closer, pulling out my phone's flashlight for a better look. My blood ran cold. It was a partial handprint, the distinctive whorls of fingerprints clearly visible in what could only be blood. The sound of the cleaning cart returning yanked me back to reality. I quickly switched off my light and ducked behind the credenza as Jorge entered, closing the door behind him. From my hiding place, I watched as he pulled on latex gloves and removed a spray bottle from his caddy. Not the standard blue glass cleaner, but a clear liquid in an unmarked container. The sharp smell of hydrogen peroxide filled the air as he meticulously wiped down the desk, paying special attention to the handprint. His movements were practiced, clinical. This wasn't his first time cleaning up blood. As he worked, Jorge muttered to himself in Spanish. My college Spanish was rusty, but I caught phrases that chilled me. Third time this month, and not what I signed up for. After thoroughly cleaning the desk, he moved to the carpet, spraying and blotting a stain I hadn't noticed. Finally, he inspected the room with a small UV light, revealing speckles that had been invisible to the naked eye. These too were methodically eliminated. I remained frozen behind the credenza, barely breathing, as Jorge completed his task. Before leaving, he placed a small envelope in Devereaux's desk drawer. Then he was gone, the gentle squeak of his cartwheels fading down the hallway. Minutes passed before I dared to move. My legs had cramped and pins and needles shot through my feet as I stood. The office looked immaculate. No trace remained of what I'd seen. Had I imagined it? Was stress finally breaking my grip on reality? The envelope in the drawer called to me, hands trembling. I slid it open and removed a folded paper. Inside wasn't a note, as I'd expected, but a receipt from a medical waste disposal company for miscellaneous biohazard materials. It was dated 2 days earlier. I took a photo with my phone, then carefully replaced everything exactly as I'd found it. As I turned to leave, my flashlight beam caught something I'd missed, a small red smear on the underside of Devereaux's desk drawer. Blood. Undeniable proof that what I'd witnessed was real. Sleep evaded me that night. My mind raced through possibilities, each more disturbing than the last. Was Devereaux involved in something violent? Was Jorge disposing of evidence, cleaning up after assaults, or worse? The questions chased each other in endless circles. The next morning, bleary-eyed from insomnia, I almost called in sick, but curiosity drove me to the office, where hushed conversations and worried glances dominated the floor. Tricia pulled me aside the moment I arrived. Have you heard? Janet from accounting is missing. Her voice quavered with genuine concern. Her husband called this morning. She never came home last night. Janet Thompson. The name from Devereaux's conversation with Jorge, the one who had noticed discrepancies in the quarterly reports. My mouth went dry. When was she last seen? Security says she left around 8:00 p.m. But her car's still in the parking garage. Throughout the day, police officers came and went. They interviewed staff, reviewed security footage, and searched Janet's desk. Devereaux emerged from several closed-door meetings looking tense but composed. When questioned by detectives, he reported that Janet had mentioned personal issues recently, suggesting she might have simply needed time away. I said nothing about what I'd seen. Who would believe me? A handprint that no longer existed. A cryptic conversation I'd overheard. Without proof, I'd sound paranoid at best. And at worst, I might draw dangerous attention to myself. That evening, I stayed late again, though my hands trembled as I pretended to work. At 10:45 p.m., the elevator dinged. Jorge's cart emerged, but Jorge himself looked different. Haggard, with dark circles under bloodshot eyes. He glanced around, then headed straight for my desk. My heart hammered against my ribs as he approached. Had he somehow realized I'd witnessed his cleanup? Was I now a liability to be eliminated? "You should go home," he said quietly, his accent thicker than usual. "Not safe to be here so late." I struggled to find my voice. I have work to finish." Jorge's eyes darted toward the executive wing, then back to me. "Some things, when you see them, you can't unsee. You understand?" It wasn't really a question. Before I could respond, the elevator dinged again. Jorge stiffened, then quickly moved away, resuming his cleaning routine with forced casualness. Devereaux stepped onto the floor, surprise registering on his face when he saw me. "Working late again, Michael. Dedication like yours deserves recognition." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "In fact, I'd like to discuss some new opportunities for you. Would you mind joining me in my office?" Every instinct screamed danger. I glanced at Jorge, who was deliberately focused on emptying a trash can, his knuckles white around the plastic bag. "Actually, sir," I said, thinking quickly, "I was just finishing up. Perhaps tomorrow." Devereaux's expression hardened almost imperceptibly. "I insist. It won't take long." As he gestured toward the executive wing, I noticed a small bandage on his right hand, partially concealed by his shirt cuff. The same hand that might have left a print on his desk. "Of course," I replied, closing my laptop and gathering my things, including my phone, which I discreetly set to record audio. Jorge watched us walk away, his face a mask of resigned knowledge. Devereaux's office looked pristine, all evidence of last night's cleanup erased. He invited me to sit, remaining standing himself as he moved behind his desk. "I've noticed your dedication," he began, opening a drawer. "Staying late, going above and beyond. The kind of loyalty Meridian values." My eyes fixed on his hands, expecting a weapon. Instead, he removed a folder. "But I also wonder about curiosity," he continued, his tone cooling. "Specifically yours. Security mentioned you've been accessing floors outside your clearance. It flagged unusual searches on your company account. They'd been monitoring me. How much did they know about what I'd seen?" "Sir, before you speak," he interrupted, "know that opportunities at Meridian can go two ways." He opened the folder, revealing photos. Me entering his office last night, me examining his desk, me hiding as Jorge had cleaned. Up the ladder, or down a very different path, like Janet Thompson chose. My blood turned to ice. What happened to Janet? Devereaux's smile was clinical. She made poor choices. Threatened to expose certain financial arrangements. Our cleaning service is quite thorough. Wouldn't you agree? The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. Money laundering through the cleaning contract. Janet had discovered it. And now, the board doesn't know everything that keeps this company profitable, Devereaux continued. Jorge handles problems discreetly, but his services are expensive. And if I go to the police, my voice sounded steadier than I felt. Well, with what evidence? Besides, he gestured to the photos. These make you look rather suspicious yourself, sneaking around after hours, going through executives' offices. The trap was elegant in its simplicity. I had no proof of what I'd seen, while they had documented evidence against me. So what happens now? I asked. Now you make a choice. Devereaux slid a contract across the desk. Sign this NDA, and accept a significant promotion to our Cayman office, or he left the alternative unspoken. Before I could respond, a noise from the hallway caught our attention. A metallic clatter, followed by a thud. Devereaux frowned, moving toward the door. It burst open before he reached it. Jorge stood there, breathing heavily, his cleaning cart blocking the doorway. In his hand was a phone. My phone, which I suddenly realized had fallen from my pocket during my hasty exit last night. It recorded everything, Jorge said. Last night, the cleanup, and it sent the recording somewhere. Devereaux's face contorted with rage. You imbecile. Why didn't you check? Because I'm done. Jorge cut him off. 3 years cleaning your messes. Janet was the last. He turned to me. I didn't kill anyone. I just cleaned. But I kept records. Insurance. You ungrateful. Devereaux lunged toward his desk drawer. Jorge moved with surprising speed, slamming a spray bottle against Devereaux's head. The VP crumpled to the floor. Police are coming, Jorge told me, tossing my phone back. Anonymous tip about Janet Thompson. They're searching the medical waste facility right now. As if on cue, distant sirens pierced the quiet of the office building. "Why help me?" I asked Jorge as we backed toward the exit. His eyes, no longer avoiding mine, held years of accumulated guilt. "Because you saw, but you didn't look away. Maybe I should have done the same years ago." The police arrived minutes later, finding Devereaux unconscious and Jorge and me waiting in the lobby. The investigation uncovered everything: offshore accounts, falsified contracts, and eventually Janet Thompson's remains, which hadn't been disposed of as thoroughly as Devereaux had believed. Jorge received immunity for his testimony. I left Meridian for a smaller firm with less impressive offices but better ethics. Sometimes I still work late, but I always leave before the cleaning crew arrives. Some routines are better broken, and some stains I've learned never truly come clean. Not the ones that seep deeper than surfaces, into the conscience where no amount of chemical solution can reach them. The most haunting part: how ordinary it all was, how easily evil disguised itself in mundane corporate politics. How many office buildings hold similar secrets after hours, when the lights dim and the cleaners arrive to erase the evidence of what really happens in the places we spend our days? I don't know, but I never ignore the cleaners anymore. I look them in the eyes and wonder, what are they really wiping away when no one is watching? The hum of the server room was the loudest thing in the office at 3:17 a.m. That, and the frantic click-clack of my own keyboard as I logged another non-urgent call. A lonely insomniac, bless his heart, just needing a voice in the dark. 10 years on the crisis hotline night shift, and you'd think I'd be immune. But some nights, the silence between calls felt heavier, charged with all the unspoken fears of the city sleeping fitfully around us. Tonight was one of those nights. My name is Sarah. I'm what you'd call a lifer here. The fluorescent lights of the Hope Now hotline office have seen more of me than my own apartment. My cubicle, Section C, Booth 4, was my little island in a sea of quiet desperation. Photos of my cat, a chipped World's okayest operator mug, the usual. Normalcy, or the illusion of it. The incoming call tone, a soft, almost apologetic chime, broke the quiet. I took a sip of lukewarm coffee, the taste bitter and familiar. Hope Now hotline. This is Sarah. How can I help you tonight? Silence. Then a sound that made the hairs on my arms prickle despite the office chill. A whisper, small and dry, like autumn leaves skittering across pavement. He's in the house. It was a child's voice. A little boy, I thought. Maybe 6 or 7. Fear tightened my chest, a familiar occupational hazard. "Okay, honey, can you tell me your name? Are you safe right now?" Another rustle of sound like fabric against the receiver. He heard Mommy. My pen hovered over the intake form. Address? Name? Situation? The basics. Where is Mommy now, sweetie? And where is he? Mommy's sleeping. On the floor. The bad man. He's coming back. The whisper was so faint, laced with a terrifying, breathless urgency. Static crackled on the line. A sudden, sharp burst, like a door slamming shut in another dimension. "Can you tell me where you are? What's your address?" My voice was calm, practiced, but my pulse was a frantic bird against my ribs. "Aye, Old Mill, off Route 9. More static than a click. The line went dead. My fingers flew across the keyboard, initiating a trace. The system whirred. Old Mill off Route 9. There wasn't one. Not officially. There was an abandoned paper mill, derelict for decades, closer to the county line. But that wasn't off Route 9. The trace came back. Origin unconfirmed. Possible YP relay. Estimated signal bounce near coordinates. It pointed to a wide, undeveloped area flagged as a vacant lot, bordering the Blackwood State Park, miles from any mill I knew. I loved the coal. Flagged it as urgent. Sent it to dispatch with the vague coordinates. Protocol. But the child's voice, that dry, terrified whisper, clung to me like cobwebs. The next few hours were a blur of routine calls, domestic disputes, suicidal ideations, the usual symphony of late-night despair. But the boy's voice echoed. Around 5 a.m., during the pre-dawn lull, I mentioned it to Dave, the shift supervisor, a man whose weary eyes had seen it all. Kit calling about a bad man. mentioned an old mill off Route 9. But the trace went to that vacant lot by Blackwood, I said, trying to sound casual. Dave frowned, rubbing his temples. Route 9 vacant lot? Huh? Sounds familiar. He typed something into his terminal. Yeah, Sarah, we've had a few like that over the past year. Same mo. Kid's voice. Bad man. Hurt mommy. Different locations mentioned. But the traces, when we get anything, often ping around that same general Blackwood area. Usually dead ends. Probably just some sicko with a voice changer, getting their kicks. A sicko. It was the most logical explanation. But the fear in that voice. The next night, it happened again. Different child's voice. A girl this time. Her whisper like broken glass. He locked me in. Mommy won't wake up. Mommy won't wake up. The location she gave was the broken house by the river. The trace? Same vacant lot. This went on for weeks. Sometimes it was a boy. Sometimes a girl. Always a whisper. Always the bad man. Always mommy hurt or mommy sleeping. And always, if a trace was even possible, it pointed to that damned vacant lot. I started researching it in my off hours. City records showed it as undeveloped municipal land, zoned for future recreational use that never materialized. Old newspaper archives mentioned it was once part of the Blackwood estate. Before the state park was formed, there were local whispers, the kind of small-town creepypasta you find on internet forums, about the Blackwood family, about strange disappearances in the woods decades ago, about the land being cursed or tainted. Nothing solid, just whispers, like the children on the phone. The other operators were spooked too. Janice, who'd been there longer than Dave, said the calls had been happening sporadically for years. They come in waves, she'd said, her voice low. Then nothing for months. Like something wakes up. I couldn't shake it. The vacant lot became an obsession. I'd pull it up on satellite maps, staring at the dense patch of trees, the overgrown fields. What was out there? Why that spot? The bad man. Was he real? Were these children real? Or was it, as Dave suggested, one incredibly cruel, technologically savvy individual playing a long, sick game with us, the listeners in the dark? One Saturday, my day off, I found myself driving towards Blackwood. I told myself I was just going for a hike in the state park. But the pull of the vacant lot was undeniable. I parked where the access road, now little more than a dirt track, met the highway. A rusted chain-link fence, half collapsed, marked the boundary. No trespassing signs, faded and peppered with buckshot, hung askew. The air was heavy, damp. The woods were too quiet. I pushed through a gap in the fence. The ground was uneven, littered with old tires, broken bottles, the detritus of neglect. As I moved deeper, the sounds of the highway faded, replaced by an unnerving stillness. Then, I saw it. Not a house, not a mill. In a small clearing, almost swallowed by overgrown weeds and young trees, was a single, dilapidated well. And around it, scattered in the dirt, were small, pathetic things. A single muddy tennis shoe, child-sized. A faded plastic doll, its eyes missing. A small, tarnished silver locket lying open. My blood ran cold. This wasn't a game. I heard a twig snap behind me. I spun around, heart hammering. Nothing. Just the trees, the shadows, the suffocating silence. But the feeling of being watched was overwhelming. A physical pressure on my skin. I backed away from the well, my eyes scanning the tree line. Then my phone buzzed in my pocket. An unknown number. My hand was shaking so badly, I almost dropped it. Hello? My voice was a strangled whisper. Static. Then, a child's voice. The first boy. The one who'd mentioned the mill. But it wasn't a whisper this time. It was clearer. He sees you, Sarah. The voice wasn't coming from the phone. It was coming from the well. A low chuckle echoed from the dark opening. A sound that was definitely not a child's. It was deep, guttural, laced with a chilling amusement. Found my little message center, did you? The voice from the well rumbled. They're quite talkative. Once you get them down here. I didn't wait. I ran, scrambling, branches tearing at my clothes, the sound of that laughter chasing me, echoing in the too quiet woods. I didn't stop running until I reached my car, fumbling with the keys, engine roaring to life. I reported it, of course. The police went out. They found the well. They found the scattered items. They even found old bones deep inside. Too old to be connected to the calls, they said. Animal remains, most likely, was the official word. The vacant lot was searched. Nothing. No bad man. No children. The calls to the hotline stopped after that. For a while. But I know what I heard. I know that laughter wasn't an animal. And I know that the land holds more secrets than bones. Sometimes, late at night, when the office is quiet, and the city outside is a distant hum, my personal cell phone will light up with an unknown number. I never answer, but I know he's still out there, and he knows I went looking. He knows I went looking. The vacant lot is waiting, and the whispers are just biding their time. The first hint of dawn approaches, but the darkness of these shifts, it lingers, doesn't it? 7 encounters where the quiet of the night was shattered by chilling realities. Did any particular tale make the hair on your own neck stand up? Even in the safety of daylight, the true horror of the night shift is the vulnerability, the isolation, the knowledge that you are often the last line of defense against whatever crawls out when the world is asleep. Which story's unsettling silence will echo in your thoughts as you try to rest? Unburden your after-dark anxieties, your own tales of nocturnal terror, in the comments below. Your shift may be over, but the fear remains. If these chronicles from the twilight hours have kept you on edge, then subscribe to Nightmare True Horror. Give that like button a click, a small beacon against the returning darkness, and help other night owls find their way to these chilling accounts. Until the next time the moon hangs high and the familiar becomes menacing, clock out, but never truly lower your guard. Sleep well, if the night allows it.